if you are willing, if you could share your screen so we can be in touch visually. It's great to see so many people on and to see your names, but if you could also share your screens, that would be fabulous and bring even more life to what is going to be an incredibly lively program. Allison Eaton already completed her survey. She gets a gold star. And anyone else who would like a gold star, please complete your survey.
I want mine, Rudy. Courtney, I just did mine. I want my gold star.
You will get one. You will get one.
I think a number of us need a gold star.
Give that brother a gold star. He just made me executive director.
Rudy, what's up, man? What's going on?
Everything is good, brother. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Some people are still logging on, but we want to make sure that we use our time wisely. Thank you all for coming out this evening. It's great to see some faces that I recognize, some people that I've heard about that I know are deep in this work. And this violence prevention work is a work of love and passion. And about a little over 10 years ago, the streets of Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx were on fire. And there were people who were studying gun violence as an epidemic. They were looking for solutions to quell the violence. They were putting their lives on the line. One of our speakers today, Aisha Sekou, was putting her life on the line, just pulling people together and going out and standing on corners and helping our young people and helping to stop violence and making sure that they had what they needed to begin to be successful in life. Iesha and Jackie Rowe Adams from Harlem Mothers Saves, they were all doing work, and Pastor Vernon Williams, no longer with us, but these are the roots and foundation of violence prevention. Erica out in Queens and A.T. Mitchell and Man Up, these people who at that time, 10, 12 years ago, were occupying the streets and doing the work that really, really needed to be done. So we've come a long way since then, and what we want to hear about tonight is what's happening with violence and violence prevention. Is it still a thing? And if it is a thing, what role do we all need to play? Our moderator will introduce the panelists, but we want to thank you, Dr. Rainey, and all the panelists for being a part of our program tonight. You said yes, and all we had to do was ask. We greatly appreciate it. I want to acknowledge again all of the guests, especially the officers of the 100. I don't see everybody's name anymore because I'm spotlighted and I don't want to forget anybody, but the one person who I am going to highlight is our president, Aldrin Ennis, and he's going to bring you a couple of words. And as I pass this off, I'm looking forward to having a wonderful program, and I know you're going to enjoy it. There'll be questions in the chat and activities, so we want you to let us know what you're thinking, and when it's time to do your part and ask those tough questions. And please remember to stay on mute. If we need you, we'll let you know and we'll ask you to unmute. But if you are not a primary speaker, please keep your phone on mute. In this order, we're going to do things. To turn it over to our brother and the third vice president, Terrence Byerson, for an opening prayer. And then we're going to move to our president, Aldrin Ennis, for his opening remarks. And then he'll take us to our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Everyone, please bow their heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for getting us here together tonight to talk about a very special issue that is very prevalent in our communities. We'd like to bless all the speakers, the panelists, the moderators, and the guests that are here in order for us to fellowship and to learn what is going on in our world so that we can have a better understanding of how to be better ourselves. We'd like to bless you. We'd like to thank you for giving us the power and the strength in order to be here during this COVID pandemic. And we'd like to just say thank you for your grace and your mercy. Amen.
Amen. Brother
evening,
President Alderness.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining 100 Black Men this evening for what I believe will be a riveting conversation around violence. As many of us know, violence has been on the rise due to COVID, with so many people working from home. Unfortunately, there has not been an escape, the escape that work or school would have provided. So it has increased. I definitely look forward to learning more about the subject, but also to let folks know, for those who have experienced it, that it is nothing to be ashamed of. And I hope that, the 100 can serve as a resource to you in those moments of crisis, and also are able to provide some counseling or organizations that would be able to assist during this time. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over, back over to Courtney, and then we can start with our panel. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother President. And thank you for your leadership and moving the 100 Black Men forward along with your board of directors and your officers. At this time, I am so pleased to present our Health and Wellness Committee, who have put this event on, and they've done a number of these fireside chats on COVID-19, as well as mental health and suicide among children and prostate cancer. They have more things coming up, very active committee, and I want to recognize Dr. Gary Butts, who is the chairman of that committee, and its members, and especially Anthony Smalls, who really makes that committee go. And at this time, it's my great honor to introduce Dr. Jocelyn Rainey, the executive director and president, I believe, of Getting Out, Staying Out, GOSO. And we offer special thoughts at this time for Martin Harris, who we know is ailing, and he is on our mind as he is one of our brothers, one of our dear members. So right now, Dr. Rainey, we want to turn it over to you, and thank you for coming in, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Courtney. Hi, I am Dr. Jocelyn Rainey. I am the president and CEO of GOSO, Getting Out and Staying Out. Our offices are located in East Harlem. I am so excited to be here for this very important conversation, and want to thank you, 100 Black Men, for hosting this conversation. It's a critical issue right now. The U.S. experiences its most violent year in decades in 2020, with unparalleled rises in homicides. The Gun Violence Archive reported that more than 19,000 people died in shootings or firearm-related incidents in 2020, the highest in over 2 decades. Many people survive violence, but suffer permanent physical and emotional scars. Violence destroys lives and communities. This is a serious public health issue, and we are honored today to be speaking with 3 experts that are on the front lines doing this work. I don't know about you, but every morning I wake up and I hear about another shooting in our city, and these are the folks that are on the ground doing the work every single day. So we're not only going to have a conversation that's going to talk about the issues, we're also going to talk about the strategies and the solutions as well. First, I want to introduce Omar Jackson from SAVE. He is an East Harlem native. Omar Jackson is a community leader who understands the importance and effectiveness of engaging in community service. In addition to his endless volunteer work, Omar serves as a director of GOSO's Cure Violence Program, Stand Against Violence East Harlem, SAVE. Omar has the passion, skills, and boots on the ground attitude needed to drive change in the Harlem community. Omar is committed to making Harlem a safer and better place with a wealth of resources and opportunities for all of the residents. We also have Aisha Sekou, Street Corner Resources. Originally from the South Bronx, Aisha Sekou is a longtime community activist, shifting change in Harlem for the past 4 decades. Aisha is the founder and CEO of Street Corner Resources, a Harlem-based nonprofit that provides resources to support young community members in their self-development. Street Corner Resources operates an anti-violence program, part of the New York City crisis management system, Cure Violence. Aisha is a dynamic, motivational speaker and a tireless advocate for our youth, encouraging them to eliminate gun and gang violence and achieve their God-given greatness. And we have Rudy Coombs from Eagle Academy for Young Men. Rudy Coombs is the former president at Local 83, National Alliance of Postal and Federal Employees, Bronx and New York Union, founded in 1921. He is also the former and first Black board chairman of the Youth Shelter Program of Westchester, an alternative to incarceration for young men ages 18 to 24, founded in 1977. Since 1993, Rudy has been a member of the 100 Black Men Incorporated. They founded the Eagle Academy for Young Men, an all-boys school, in 2004. Rudy lives by many creeds, those including, a mind is a terrible thing to waste and no child should be left behind. I did a shortened summary of their bios, and I'm gonna start by asking them to talk to us about what drew you to this work and tell us a little bit about the work you're doing today and the community that you serve. Why don't we start with you, Aisha?
Sorry about that. I'm a little slow on the draw here. Peace and blessings, family. It's really good to see everyone. I'm always excited about this work because we had a really good engagement day today. So families were out in front of our space. But the thing that drew me to this work, I think, is just that, the need, the desire to create community and a community that is safe. And I think the tragedy side of it, because people always ask about that, and they ask if I lost a child to gun violence. I have not. I only have one child. People think I have a lot of children. I have one child, and I have grandchildren. And but the thing, part of what drew me to this work is when a child who was 13 years old, I was already kind of doing this work, but the thing that made me commit, I was running programs for a not-for-profit at that time. But the thing that made me commit to this work was when a 13-year-old named Scotty Scott was shot in his head. It made me make a hard commitment to the issue of gun violence, not just young people, because I was already working with them. But it was when Scotty Scott was shot in his head in a gambling game. And they shot him because he was gambling without money, basically. And they shot and killed him. And then maybe some years later, we saw Chris Booba Owens, 13 years old, shot in his head. So it was these incidents of young people being shot and killed or beat to death, and kids playing with guns, and they would shoot their brother or their sister. I had one woman, the young woman who provided our, can you close that door, please? Thank you, it's too much noise. Who provided some engagement for us today. I remember her story. She was shot in her heart at 15 by her boyfriend by accident, playing with a gun. So the issue of guns and violence and the way that it was disrupting the community, I think more than anything, drew me to this work. And I knew that, my mother, who's, always been an activist as long as I've known, I didn't even know it was something different, like it was a thing. My mother told me, you're an activist. And I said, no, I'm not an activist. And she said, yeah, because I was telling her, I said, people keep telling me I'm an activist. And she said, you are. But in our family, activism was just there. It was just who we were. We protested for welfare rights years ago at the welfare centers, things like that. I did that as a kid and with my mom. So I never thought that. I thought everybody did that kind of stuff. So activism brought me to this work as well. And I just feel like the Creator has me on mission and purpose in this work. Every time I think I'm going to stop, there's something that shows up that lets me know the value in this work. So I love it. Mhm.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you and all the Cure Violence teams that were out here in this pandemic without stop. That I know, I came to your offices, I saw you
That's
there, with our mask on,
Yeah.
so thank you for doing this work.
Thank
So
you.
Rudy, the same question. Tell us what drew you to this work.
For me, it was a traumatic experience in my life when at the age of 20 years old, I was arrested for something I didn't do. And I was looking at 15 to 25 years in prison. But before that, I had already been stopped and spread eagle at least 10 times by police officers just on the way home with friends coming from parties.
Mhm.
I have had a gun pointed at me on 2 different occasions by police officers and another time by a detective. These things you just don't forget, and all because of the color of my skin and the environment I lived in. This disturbing thing about this is that it's still happening.
Mhm.
It's an ongoing thing. And me being a survivor of the environment and that violence and that crime and that poverty, I'm obligated to come back and give back. I don't have no other choice. I have to. And this is why I do what I do and have been doing for the last 30 years. I have to be a voice for those that don't have any voice, especially our youth.
Thank you. Thank you, Rudy. And Omar, why don't you talk a little bit about what brought you to this work?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rainey. There's multiple things that actually brought me to this work. The fact that I have sons, and I grew up in the community that I now serve under some of the same conditions that some of the youth are growing up under. That's one of them. I was considered a product of my environment. I was involved in like the behaviors that plague our community, and I made plenty of poor decisions as when I was younger, and it took me to mature and just be tired of suffering from my consequences, tired of having my family suffer from my poor decisions. It took that maturity for me to say, I can't do this no more. Being a part of the formerly incarcerated population and once being a problem, I made an obligation to just be a part of the solution. And, there's a saying like, be the change that you want to see. So I felt that I entered this field because I wanted to change what we consider the social norms. Like I wanted to make a difference in some of these kids' lives and so they don't have to go through some of the things that I went through. I wanted to be that father figure. For me, I didn't have a father figure. The streets kind of raised me. I went outside and the older guys on the block, what I thought was the right thing, they was really showing me the wrong thing. So I'm trying to help these kids not go through that. And then another thing that drew me to this work, in 2009, when I was incarcerated, a 16-year-old kid from my neighborhood, a very popular kid that the community loved, he was murdered. He was murdered as a result of the project wars, the housing development wars. And as I stated, this kid was loved by me, by the entire community. And I saw the impact that it had on his family. I saw the impact that it had on the community, and it still does have, right? And I felt like we let him down. We let that family down. And then what drives me to continue doing this work, seeing, and Aisha is very aware, what happened with Chico in 2016, the effect and the impact that still has on the East Harlem community. A 12-year-old kid that I coach in basketball being shot a year and a half ago, a 7-year-old getting shot a couple of months ago. This is what drives me, and it gives me that passion to drive change in the community. So this is why I'm here and I'm doing this work.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. It's so important to kind of talk about where this started, what drew you to this work. Because, I think about myself and I always say that, I always knew I was worthy. My family told me that intellectually, but you still walk into rooms where you feel worthless because of the color of your skin or because of your gender or because of your experience. And having people who've been through that, being able to do this work is so important. So thank you all for sharing that with us. So Omar and Aisha, we're having a fireside chat. Let's, talk to each other. But can you tell us a little bit about what is Cure Violence work? How is it changing communities? And, who are credible messengers?
You want me to go first, sister?
One of you can start. Yep.
Okay. All right. So Cure Violence work. Cure Violence work is community members working in the community trying to reduce the gun violence. It's hard to say stop gun violence because we know it's gonna occur, but we're in the community day in, day out trying to reduce gun violence. How do we do that? We have a team of violence interrupters, we have a team of outreach workers, and we try to change what is considered, again, the norms of the community. So me, to speak about East Harlem in particular, there's a lot of housing developments in East Harlem. In East Harlem, there's a lot of crews, and it's a crew wars. There's gangs as well, but there's crews in East Harlem. So what we do is we, the Cure Violence team, we go out into the development, specifically Johnson, Jefferson, Wagner, and beyond at times as well. And we talk to these youth that we know that's involved. We try to offer them resources. We try to offer them opportunity. We try to get them to put their flags down in some cases. We try to get them outside of the neighborhood. We try to show them something different other than what they're used to. And hopefully that'll begin conversation and try to get them to change that mindset. And Cure Violence works, statistics show it. Every neighborhood that Cure Violence has been placed in, the specific catchment areas, crime has been down. And I'm not just speaking about gun violence, crime as a whole. And that's based off of relationships that we build in the community, with the community members, with the local businesses, with the politicians, with everyone that frequents the community. We build those rapports to where they know that they can come to us and we can intervene when there's an argument, when there's a fight, when there's a disagreement, and come to some type of common ground. So it's proven that it works. And again, the numbers show that it works. It's like we are our community, and we feel like as Cure Violence, and I know I speak for myself and Sister Iesha when I say this, like we if we're not gonna do it, who else is? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we are the community. So us being the leaders of the community, we try to drive that change that I was kind of speaking about earlier, and we try to get the community engaged, and that's how Cure Violence work. We do a ton of things, from events that engages the community, that brings the community together. And the purpose of that is to, again, break those norms, break that tension that may be going on in the community, and show our face, let them know that we're here. This is what we do. We're here for the community. We're here to stop the violence. We're here to show the community that we got us.
Yep. And Aisha, you've been doing this for over 4 decades. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. You've been doing it longer than we have. And I think that, we're doing a great job, but would love to hear about what you're doing on your side of Harlem. You're on mute, Aisha.
Hey, I think I'm off mute now. One, it's just wonderful to hear Omar talk about this work. So that's why I had to let him do his thing first. It's wonderful to hear him talk about it, and to see SAVE having taken such a stronger shape from the beginning till now. So it's just nice to see that. So I want to just say, in this work, I always try to think about how we could create the community better, so that violence doesn't show up or is not the first place or the first thing, that we have some other ways of engaging before the gun comes out. And I think that the more people know each other, and the more we can put some joy back in our community, some laughter, people talking, and I'll give the example of today. One of the community members, she does an exercise kind of thing with the big hula hoops, and she brought out paint and just so many things for the kids to engage. but even the adults, and the adults become kids when they engage like that. And that's an opportunity to have conversation about difficult things when you feel almost childlike, coloring, painting, talking, laughing. Those are things that have kind of left our community in a certain sense. So today was a joyous day. There was a lot of laughter up and down the street, people talking. We had some old school music, and it was very simple. It didn't really cost anything. We ordered pizza, and different people stopped. So while we had activities that were childlike, we had a lot of adults stop and ask questions and wanted to know what they could do. We had a mother, and this was the deepest thing for me, I get goosebumps right now, who this was her reason to stop, but there was a need for her to stop. So when she stopped and she said, so tell me about, what's this all about? And she asked one of our outreach workers. And so she told her, and she said, my son was killed in August on Lenox Avenue. Mm. We responded to that shooting. We responded to that shooting, I think, right before it happened, it was a fight. And then there was the shooting. But anyway, I really feel like she stopped because she knows she needed to have a place to pour into and for someone to give something to her. So I immediately came in the office and got the counseling. So I don't know if I'm off the topic, but I'll just tell you, in this work, because we talk about violence a lot, we use the word violence a lot, but we really have to be more in the business. And I think that we're getting there of healing, helping, put love back in our community. Black folks used to have happiness and love when we had no money.
That's right.
We would create rent parties and all of that and help each other. And now people walk by when people are getting beat.
Yep.
And so we have to, so a big part of what, the way that I see this work is, we do need to respond. We need to de-escalate. We need to intervene when violence is concerned, but we also need to look at the pieces that are missing from our community and not be afraid to say words like love and, we need to bring some happy back. I say that all the time. I say we need to bring happy back because when we would dance and laugh, we weren't pulling out guns at parties. We were just having a good time, and the girls were figuring out what outfit to put on, and the guys were trying to be cool, and that was the thing. Now the parties end up with a whole different energy. So I just see this work as an opportunity to bring community back.
Yep. I think you're right. I think that when I first, walked through the doors of GOSO and met the SAVE team, what I was most impressed was the community engagement, the work that they were doing around exposing, the people in the community, and especially the young people, to things they may not always be exposed to. I also want to give credit where credit is due. The Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, they fund this work across the city.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think is amazing. And we should all know that so that we can advocate to make sure that this funding is always in place, because it's important for our communities, right? So it's important that the audience knows that this work is funded and needs to continue to be funded, because our communities are struggling with trauma. And, you guys didn't talk about, how much the community knows you. I was in your office when that young man walked in just to tell you about his trip to DR, right? And, I'm with Omar when he's telling me about, he was there on the weekend, and someone who just seeing him might make something not happen because they have someone there. So I just want to talk about how important it is that this work is funded, and that, we're able to do this work in our community. So I want to thank you. And you're right about joy and healing. It's really about being healers. It really is.
It is. And we have everything that we need to be that, right? Our churches, our mosques, our community centers, our organizations, fraternities and sororities. We have people with enough to make our community better. I just want to say one other thing about that. So we use a lot of what I call creating the web, so that young people get caught in the place. Because they want to be there, right? Not because they're mandated or forced. And so we have a music studio over on 140th Street. We have the Peace Cafe that actually allows for great community engagement, young, older, seasoned. Some folks can't really sing, but it's okay. They have a place where they can try. And that's what the Peace Cafe is about, because it's really not about the talent. It's about the engagement.
Yep.
And so that's the last Friday of every month. We've been doing that for 5 years. It started in a dirty, moldy basement that we had to clean up and paint and throw stuff out. And it's really a nice space. I look forward to you all coming, one day soon when we can have you all in there. But we have to create those kind of things that create happy. So I just wanted to
No, thank you. Thank you. Enjoy and healing is exactly it. Like we have to be healers. Rudy, they say that, violence is a public health problem, and that it should be addressed as such. One, do you think that's true? And what are some ways that we could address it if we're thinking about this as a public health issue?
Most definitely it is a public issue. And, we've been talking about violence in the community and police brutality in the community for an exceptionally long time. Even before I was born, and most of us on this virtual right now, before we was born, we was talking about violence in the community. And right now, it's a major conversation right now. We all know that violence doesn't discriminate. Violence from the Native American Indian to the Jews, the Blacks, the Hispanics, and currently right now, the Chinese, like coming right here in New York. It seems that it never ends, and everybody gets a turn. Every race gets a turn. You just got to wait for your turn. Okay. We talk about Black Lives Should Matter, but it really Black Lives Matter, but it really should matter. Okay. Why doesn't it matter? From Eric Garner in 2014, and more recently Breonna Taylor, and the George Floyd case going on right now, the trial going on right now. Not to mention to the many others who have died from violence before then. This is a situation that is ongoing. And at some point in time, it's going to explode to a point where it's unstoppable unless we do something about it. You can see it happening. You may not want to challenge that and say it is, but you can see it. Every generation seems to get worse and worse with this violence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To the point, these young people right now don't value life. They don't value their lives, and they don't value anybody else's lives. Mm-hmm. And we have to do something about it.
I agree. And so what are some of the things that we should be doing, Omar? And what should we be asking our electeds for? What should we be expecting from the new administration around policies and actions in order to combat this health crisis? We're in our communities are struggling with over policing. In New York City, Black people are stopped 8 times more often than white people. Just stop, right? So you can get in trouble 8 times more frequently than a white person just because of the color of your skin or because of the community that you live in. And to Rudy, to your point, there's so much joblessness and there's just not enough work out there for young people. Last year, they cut the budget for summer youth programming, right? So that means that there was less work, and idle hands, we know what happened. So Omar, what are some of and anyone can just chime in too, but what are some of the policies, or what should our electeds be doing? What should we expect from them in order to help to combat this health crisis?
I think one of the things, that I'm always going to say is funding, right? And why I say funding is because that allows us the opportunity to have the community hire more credible messengers, let me say, and have more people get involved and buy into what it is we're doing. And it could be, and that funding can go towards hiring. That funding can go towards more events and just being out there more, just doing more for the community.
Omar, not to interrupt you, but who are we hiring when we're hiring, Omar? Who are we hiring when we're hiring credible messengers? Because that also helps, right? Like, who are we hiring?
Absolutely. We hiring people such as myself, people that may not have an opportunity anywhere else, people that's a part of that formerly incarcerated population that may get looked over or looked under when it comes to applying for a job. But we can do this work because we can identify, we can relate, and we've been through these struggles because we're from the community and we want that change in the community. So we're hiring people such as myself, people that are activists like Sister Aisha, people like Rudy that knows that have been through it. And again, you know, we gotta funding is gonna be the biggest thing. I think we're in a space right now due to everything that has been happening with the George Floyd incident. But you know, we're just scratching the surface, in my opinion. You know, and when I say that, I'm talking about as far as reform. And there's some changes that's trying to be made. I don't know if it's genuine, or I don't know if it's that the police are just trying to make it look like it's something that they're attempting to do. But we are scratching the surface. And I can give you an example of how, because of some of these reforms that's coming into play, is like me being asked to be a part of the police advisory board. And I was just asked this a few days ago. And you know what this will do is give me that voice for the community, give me that opportunity to say, yo, this is not right. This is, you handled this wrong. This is how you could have handled that. And just hope that, you know, my voice is really being heard and being respected, because truth be told, you know, I at times feel like police have their own agenda. But the fact that I'm being invited to have a seat at that table, I'm hoping that this is that change that we're talking about. Because when we're talking about community, we're also talking about PD, you know, yep, whether we want to say it or not, because they are part of the community. So, you know, again, like, these is things that's happening that we are scratching the surface as far as this reform go. And I know we have a long, long way to go, because there's a lot of damage that has been done to Black and brown communities. And, you know, it's going to take a lot to fix it, a whole lot to fix it.
Aisha, I know one of the things that we have at SAVE is that we have a paid internship program, and that also helps us to, and that is, you know, we receive subsidies from donors and also from city funding as well, and that's really important as well. What other types of resources and programming should we be expecting from our electeds? What should we be asking our community to do in order to combat this, you know, really serious health problem? You're muted.
I got to get used to all of this. I mean, by the time I get it perfect, this will all be over. But, you know, one, I want to give a shout out to President Biden, because today he made the announcement. Someone had told me about it last night, but he made the announcement about investments in community violence interventions, and that some of that, a good portion of that funding or that investment will be with organizations that exist now. And so I think that that's great, because organizations who are doing this work were always made almost wrong for being small and starting. You have to start somewhere. Not everybody knew how to do this work or wanted to, like an Omar wants to do this work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Iesha wants to do this work. And so I think it's great that we have that. So one of the things that we have been asking for was just that, some money for organizations who were already doing the work, already invested in the community. So I'm grateful for that. But one of the things we also should ask for, I guess, is to make sure that we have enough money to begin to set up more of what we know that works, mm-hmm, right? So if Street Corner Resources, in the way that we deliver service, is working in the area that we are instructed or commissioned to reduce violence, then why not give us more, yep, so that we can do more in other areas? Because when people sit down on this bench outside during this COVID time to talk with the counselor, in a day, we might see, you know, maybe 8 people, 9 people just without appointments come and have a seat. So what's happening on the next block, mm-hmm, and the next block, mm-hmm, and then in 10 blocks from here? There are people who are in need of the service. The need to be served is great. During the pandemic, we were the only ones out right at the beginning. Yeah. And we saw people really needing supportive services, counseling, because they were losing their loved ones. Yeah. And not just one. Some people we met lost 3 and 4 people. So when we talk about what can we ask for, it's not just an ask like something we want to have, it's what we need to have. We need to have counselors available, not just at our sites, our Pure Balance sites, but we need to have the support that comes from out of the school. It should be connected to us, right? So there should be some continuity in our communities about counseling, about supportive services. If Bubba and Dede, we know that they have an issue, then we don't call the police inside the school. We call the counselor that knows them on the outside and the counselor that knows them on the inside of the school, and connect the service so that we give them the best that we can give them, not lock our children up and make them wrong. So the ask is that we get enough money to provide real service, not Band-Aid service, real service, and really service an area like Harlem in the best way that we can, because the money is there to do that. What it takes to incarcerate, we can actually take care of more kids with just that one person that's being incarcerated for 10 years, 15 years. We can service, a good amount of young people. So my ask is that we have real funding so that we can do real work and make a real impact in our community.
Holding someone at Rikers for a year, which we know many young people are detained for much longer than a year, is $300,000 a year. Where someone going through any of our program, the cost is somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on what they're working with. Like the savings to our community, to our city, would be astronomical if we just thought about that, but we don't talk enough about that, right? Like, that's why I believe in putting numbers with it. Like, it's not a small amount, it's 300. You know what we could do with $300,000? Exactly. Rudy, so violence is a leading cause of death for young people ages 0 to 24 years of age. The experience of violence and other adversities in childhood can impair physical, emotional, and social development and diminish lifelong health and opportunity. What can or is being done to address this issue for young people?
Well, one thing that can be done is organizations come together and work collaboratively on this topic of violence prevention and how they can get involved. Sororities, organizations that have not been doing that, fraternities. A good example I'm going to give is the Youth Shelter Program in Westchester. Many of you may not even know about the Youth Shelter Program in Westchester, but please Google Youth Shelter Program of Westchester.org and YSOW.org. And it's an alternative for incarceration for young men 18 to 24. It's in Mount Vernon, New York. They've been doing this for over 40 years. And they're significantly making an impact on young men's confidence and self-esteem. I've been a part of that for 27 years. I stepped away as to be the union president for Local 813, but they give youth a second chance. I've seen young men come out of there that's in the fire department now. Young men who got their own computer company. Young men that say to me, Mr. Coombs, and sometimes I don't even remember these young men because they walk up to me and say, hi, Mr. Coombs. And it's been 10 or 15 years. They're married, they got a family, and they said, because of you, we are doing this. That's impactful to me. I was getting an award one time, and after I got an award, 2 young men from Morgan State came and said, do you remember me at Eagle Academy? And I said, no, I don't remember you, but tell me he said, well, you spoke at my school and influenced me to go on to college. That's what I need to hear. And then another organization, my organization, 100 Black Men, who sponsored this event and who in 2004 founded an all-boys school in the Bronx with the intent to retake our boys from the pipeline to prison. After finding out in a survey that most of the incarcerated young men from upstate actually came from the 5 boroughs in New York City.
Right.
We started 5 schools from that one school in the Bronx. We have in every borough, including Newark, New Jersey. Okay. And what's so amazing about the Eagle Academy of Young Men, we started it in a crime-infested, poverty-stricken, lack of resources. And guess what? When they graduated now, the same guys that graduated from high school, they graduated from Yale, Columbia, Harvard, West Point, Penn State, and many other schools, all coming out of these crime, poverty, drug-infested environments. So don't tell me we can't do it. We can do it. Eagle Academy has proved that. And just like we started Eagle Academy, other organizations, fraternities, and sororities can do the same thing. You just got to want to do it and make a difference in these young people's lives. That's all it is. That's all it is. I started out from nowhere, and it's been my life dream, and that's what I do. And anybody on here can do it. You just got to have a passion, be persistent, and determined to do it, and everything else will fade out, because you ain't doing nothing but good. You're not doing anything but good.
That's right. You know, for all of us to really understand, like Aisha did when I was on vacation, Sweet called me up and knew there was some money out there and said, listen, I want to share this with SAVE, like understanding that if we all get together and work together, we can do more. And I think to what you said that's so true, Rudy, is that young people have the capacity to do anything. That's why I do this work. Like young people have the resilience and the capacity to do and be anything that they want to be as long as we invest in them. And Aisha, we need to close that little gap between SAVE and Street Corner Resources to make sure that we're serving all the people in Harlem, right? And having this conversation. So, you know, talking to your electeds about supporting these types of organizations, talking about, you know, supporting new schools like Eagle Academy, you know, giving grants to 100 Black men and sororities and fraternities and telling them to work together to make something happen is really important. So I thank you for that. Aisha, one of the problems that plague communities is untreated mental health issues. What is your experience with that? You know, that they're filling our jails with people who need healthcare. They don't need to be incarcerated.
Right. So you know what? You're absolutely right. You know, on this block where our office is, they opened up a mental health facility. I think it's a MICA facility, mentally ill, chemically addicted or dependent or whatever it is. And so a lot of those men that are there came out of prison. But I also see that while that facility is there, that the police engage them and they wind up getting arrested because the direct service that they need is not available. And that's real mental health service. Like we can have programs, we can house people, we can incarcerate those who need the service. But if we don't have the real service, the real provision of service, if we're not providing the mental health support that they need, we're doing them an injustice. And even with our young people, we know that addiction and you know, the excessive use of alcohol and pills and the mixing of it is causing mental health issues. And not just for the young people, but the parents who are challenged with raising them. For example, we had a mother who on one of our team's response to Harlem Hospital, where Street Corner Resources has a contract, there was a mother there and she was crying outside. And so my team knows, don't pass a person by like that, find out what's going on. And the mother said that her son was smoking the e-pipe, and he was also drinking and mixing alcohol and all of this. These kids are doing all of this stuff right now. Everything is all mixed up. The lean, the pipe, they take and put other stuff in it. And so it's causing mental health issues because the brain and the body does not get an opportunity to recuperate. Where they would start drinking later, pre-pandemic, they're drinking earlier and they're drinking longer. It just goes right around the clock. They may go to sleep for about 3 hours. They're back up doing the same thing. Well, this kid went into a coma and they found out that he had pneumonia. But what it was doing to the mother, who was struggling with, do I pull the plug, because they were saying he was brain dead because of you know, all of the consumption, it was causing a mental health issue for the mother. So when we talk about mental health, and that's just one situation, because the mother was saying she didn't feel like continuing to live, right? Because she was losing her son. This was her second son. The first one she lost, he had been shot. So we're dealing in a community where there are families who have had multiple traumatic episodes, events in their life, losing 2 and 3 sons, losing a daughter, people getting shot, and people have to just go on like nothing happened.
Right.
You know? Getting counseling is not like the presentation that's made to them unless they come to a place like Street Corner Resources or SAVE, but they're not being encouraged, or counselors are not readily available to take care of the issue that we see, the issues that we see in our communities. Folks are dealing with some heavy stuff and long term, you know? And so, I don't know if I'm off topic.
No, you're so right. I guess maybe Rudy or Omar, if you want to add anything
Yeah.
around like what you see around mental health issues, because as Aisha said, this is something that is almost taboo in our communities, and we don't, and we see it all over. I live in Bedford-Stuyvesant. We see that it's in our communities, and it's causing people to be incarcerated. It's causing them to act in towards violence. So what are your thoughts on that, Omar?
I just wanted to just add, right, there's so many types of mental illness, and everything from depression to anxiety to schizophrenia, bipolar, et cetera, the list goes on. And what we need to get away from is police responding to those episodes, because police is just there to make arrests.
Right.
When I say get away from that, even if it's a call, a 911 call where, it's being said that this person is suffering from X, Y, and Z, then a mental health expert needs to be called to the scene as well. Because we know police are there to make collars, police are there to lock people up. And, then that leads to what we were just talking about, the money that's being made off of incarcerating people. And it's just like, a lot of these people that are suffering from these mental issues are being locked up for however amount of time. And it's just like, it's not even a second thought, because we know that prison is business. So I think we need to get away from that and just create some, more mental health facilities, if that's what it's going to be. But just calling police to the scene when there's a mental health episode or issue, I think we need to get away from that.
This is such an important issue. Rudy, do you have any thoughts on the mental health crisis that's happening in our city?
I blame mental health on the system, because just for instance, I don't know if you all know how the system determines how many prisons are going to be built. Okay, they determine how many prisons are going to be built by the third grade failing reading scores. Do you hear what I'm saying? The third grade reading failing scores from a third grade. So you're telling me that if I can't read in the third grade, that you're building room for a prison for me. Okay, that's mental problems right there, because now I can't read. Now I'm going to be teased and bullied. I got to go through all. You causing mental health. You causing me to go crazy. I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to do something to somebody. I can't get no job. Nobody's going to hire me because I can't read. I can't comprehend. Now you put me in a situation where I'm going to blow your brains or minds out. Simple as that.
Very true. Very true. So intimate partner violence is serious and preventable. It's a public health issue as well. And we know that there's been a huge uptick during the pandemic. Are you and your team seeing this? And what is being done to address this issue in the community? Iesha or Omar? You went mute.
So in our, actually, the Office to Prevent Gun Violence, we have domestic violence providers that are our partners and that work with us. But also on my team, our team is trained to know when abuse is happening. And so when we talk about intimate partner violence, it's not always just man to woman. It is woman to woman, man to man, and intimate partner is the person who's, you're intimate with, but it doesn't always mean sexually intimate. It can be family intimate, like family violence, right? And we see that in our communities often, and particularly during this time of COVID. The numbers are up. When we have a contract at Harlem Hospital where we respond to brutal beatings, stabbings, shootings, jumpings, and of course, even acts of domestic violence sometimes. And we see a lot of intimate partner violence come into that hospital. The scary part about it is that because the woman or the man may not be able to maintain themselves separate from that partner, or don't feel like they're going to be okay and safe with a roof over their head, or they have children, they will stay in those situations. So what we do is try to find resources. We try to use programs that we partner with within the Cure Violence framework and even outside of that to make the proper referrals, counseling, and of course the additional supportive services, which may be like HRA or what have you, so that if that partner wants to leave, that they have a solid way to do that so that they're safe and so that we don't see a life loss. The bottom line for us, and Omar can attest to this, is that it's about saving the life. It's about not taking sides, not because I'm a woman or Omar's a man. It's about what do we need to do to save the life and how do we intervene to do that. And so intimate partner violence is a big issue right now. I'll just say that. Yeah. And that when we talk about money and funding, as someone who runs an organization, I know that we can't do everything with what we have right now. We need more money so we can hire more people that can deliver great service, not just, like I said, mediocre service, but great service so that we ensure that a life is saved.
Omar, do you have any thoughts on domestic partner or intimate partner violence? And are you seeing it? And what do you think should be done? What do you think the government should do, or our elected officials should do in regards to that?
Yeah, I have been seeing it. Just like gun violence, or when people say gun violence, there's an uptick in gun violence, which we all know is true as a result of this pandemic. There's an uptick in everything else, unemployment, etc. But definitely like intimate violence, domestic violence, and that comes from what we're not used to, being quarantined in a house with our siblings, with our significant other, and the stresses that come along with not being able to move about your normal day and things of that nature. But yeah, there's been an uptick. I know like two incidents that came to mind as Sister Aisha was just talking. Just recently, we have a program called What's Up Wednesdays, where we bring the youth from the community, and some of our participants come into a space that we have, and we have critical conversation. We have dialogue based off of what's going on, how you feeling, what's your why. We try to show documentaries. We yesterday we took I think about 12 participants to go see the Black Judas and the Black Messiah. So I'm bringing this up to say there's a couple that happen to be a participants of ours, and kind of to your point, Aisha, we fight the fight of gun violence, but everything comes along with it. So this couple actually was the young man was actually physically abusing his girlfriend, and she shared it with our outreach worker, and we intervened. And to our knowledge now, it seems like it's not happening. I don't think it's happening. They still come to What's Up Wednesdays, which is which shows that it may not be happening, because I think if it would have continued to happen, he probably would have been like, I'm not going back. So I'm bringing that up because us just doing this work from all aspects, it ties into everything. And that's one of them. Another incident that happened that I just wanted to share really quick is a sibling squabble that, and you're familiar with this, Jocelyn. There was a 14-year-old young male and a 17-year-old female, brother and sister, that had a fight a few months ago in their home. Their mom called police because, she panicked. She wanted to just get them to stop fighting. She wanted the police to come intervene, and she panicked and called police. Police came to the home and arrested this 14-year-old boy and 17-year-old young lady. None of them ever had an arrest before, but they were taken to the precinct. The young lady went through the system. The young boy was fingerprinted and then let go in the middle of the night. And, I'm bringing this up because this is why we're here. And this is why we try to have these relationships with NYPD. And this is why we're building these relationships so that we can come to the precinct and these people can be released to us, as we tried. Myself and my supervisor went to the precinct. We called our legal aid partners and we tried to get these two released to us and the parent, but to no avail. But that just goes to show sometimes that police aren't on the same page as us, and police aren't what I said earlier, sometimes they do have their own agenda. So and now I don't know if I just kind of got off topic, but I was speaking of the violence, the the intimate violence and the domestic violence that's going on in these households due to this pandemic. So that's part of the blame. But, you know, I always say, and I said to the mom, call us. Don't make that call to the police. Call us next time. And especially being that I have a relationship. She called me when they got arrested, but she didn't call me when they were fighting. And I know if I got there when they were fighting, then, you know, we would have alleviated any type of arrest.
You know, it's funny when you were bringing in talking, the thing that I was thinking about was that story that you just told about the siblings, and what Aisha said about intimate partners could be, you know, not just partners that you're not just sexual partners, but also people that you're living with during this time. It's really stressful. You know, we're all stuck together. But when I think about this defund the police movement, you know, I think about like the truth is that we need to reallocate funding from police to places like street corner resources and SAVE, who could be called in on these kinds of issues, and also to mental health professionals who should be called when someone is struggling with mental health, because, you know, smart parents aren't calling the police and they're just dealing with it on their own because they know what could happen. So I actually, you know, I'm a storyteller, Omar. So Aisha and Omar, I appreciate your stories. Stories really help to bring these things home, right? Mm-hmm. So Omar, on that note, you know, how do you partner with law enforcement, faith leaders, elected officials, and other community-based organizations? And are these partnerships helpful?
Yes, these partnerships are helpful. So first, I'm gonna start out with law enforcement. Our relationship with law enforcement is a pretty good relationship, I'm gonna say, and in my area. We work in the confinements of the 23rd, 25th precinct, and we also have PSA 5, which covers the housing developments on the east side of Harlem. So my relationship with them is pretty good. They do understand and respect the work that we do, which is great. They know that it's a one-way relationship. They know that they can give me some information, but I'm not going to give any information, which is the boundary that was set from the beginning. And in the beginning, they did try it. They tried to say, hey, you can tell us such and such. No, because our job is we want to prevent these young kids from going to jail. We don't want them to go to jail. And we have the capability to do that. So the relationship with law enforcement is, you know, I even get calls from them sometimes. Say, listen, we just seen X, Y, and Z on social media. Y'all need to go holler at him. This is the relationship that I currently have with the 23rd precinct. And as I mentioned, they asked me to be a part of the advisory board. And, you know, I'm going to accept that. And I'm going to see what that looks like and have these conversations that need to be had while I represent not only just us as an organization, but represent the community as a whole. Elected officials, we have a really good relationship with our elected officials as well, from everyone from our district leaders to our council member, and state senate as well. They support what we do. They show up to our events. We partner with them over and over again. Our last big event we just did, a coat drive. We gave away coats in the Wagner community, and our council member, Diana Ayala, showed up and handed out coats to families with us. She was even a translator. She was speaking Spanish to the Spanish families that, you know, that didn't understand English. And that just goes to show the relationship and the partnership. And it shows that, you know, they don't think that they're too big to be on the ground with us. And one of the great things that happened that came from that coat drive is that the Wagner community was like, oh my God, y'all here. And, you know, we look forward to y'all. And you know, they come by the office when we're there, and they say, when y'all coming over here? And you know, just to big up Javon really quick, he had the team over in Wagner yesterday handing out lunches. And this is just some of the things that we do, and you know, the partnerships that we have. And then with the CBOs, we can't do it alone. We need to partner with these CBOs. We need to be able to, you know, I'm GOSO, but I may need to refer someone to a young female to a program, or a young male that may not be able to come to GOSO that may be, you know, reside on West Harlem. I may call Sister Aisha and say, Sister Aisha, and you've done that with me in the past. You know, I got somebody in Polo Grounds, such and such. So this is why you got to have relationships with these CBOs as well. And just to sum it up, like the term, it takes a village. You know we can't do it alone. we have to do it together. CBOs, the local businesses, the residents, the law enforcement as well. I know sometimes it's even hard for me to say it, but I gotta say it, law enforcement as well. You know, we gotta partner to make our community a safer place.
Right.
So Rudy, and what do you think that we should be asking for from these stakeholders, from our electeds, from faith leaders, from law enforcement? What should we be asking from them?
Well, me personally, first I got to give a shout out to Yonkers, New York, and Mayor Spano and former Commissioner Garner for allowing me to work with them, with the community and youth there as a partnership where the kids came in and actually met with the police department and hung out with them, drove with them in the squad car and got to really get to know the police officers as a human being. Okay, I think that's very important to understand. It's very important for us. Like I said, anybody can do this. You just got to want to be persistent and determined to do it. It doesn't take a rocket science to do anything that we're talking about right here. You just got to have the heart and the passion to do it. When I went to a commission in New York and asked them, you're stopping all these kids, which was one of my sons. They were stopping my son, and he's coming from the studio. And I asked the commissioner, because I'm a 100 Black man, I got an opportunity to talk to the commissioner at the time. I'm not going to name no names, but I got to talk with him. And I said to him, I said, you're stopping all these young men, but you're not letting them know what they need to do when they get stopped so they don't get arrested. I said, can't you do something about that first? Don't just arrest the young men. Let them get an opportunity to know what they got to do to not get arrested or get shot. And he tells me, well, that's not in our budget. And I said to him, fine, that's not in your budget, I'll do it. For so 18 years, I started teaching what to do if the police stop you and what not to do. And I did that for 18 years, okay? I taught my son at 9 years old, I said, never, ever hit a girl because you'll end up hitting a woman later on in life. My son doesn't even think of hitting a woman. You understand what I'm saying? You got to embed these things in these young people at an early age. You got to understand, one of the strongest recruiters out there is the drug dealers and the gang leaders. Why? Because those kids lost their self-esteem and confidence, and the drug dealers and the gang leaders will give them the confidence and the self-esteem they need by telling them, go out and shoot that person. Let me see if you can take responsibility. And that's how the gangs get these young men involved. We have to do something better. We have to do something better. My brother's keeper, what I'm doing right now, I'm working with the middle school 5th and 6th graders. And what I do is I teach rites of passage. That's what I do, rites of passage. Let them learn their culture and their history at an early age. And then I have the opportunity to go into the prisons and mentor to young men to try to make them don't become career criminals. I'm loving what I'm doing, but I've been doing it for 30 years. And after a while, you get tired. You need other people to get on board. That population incarceration, nobody wants to help that population. Why? They're human beings just like anybody else. They're human beings just like anybody. All they needed, they didn't have the resources. They didn't know how to get the resources. They had no mentors. Look at Eagle Academy. We have mentors for every child there. Guess what? Every child there is succeeding above and beyond, and that's a public school. We never thought we could do that, but we had the persistence and determination to do it, and that's why it's been so successful.
Yeah, and it's, it's mentors and exposure and all of that is so important, but also we have to remember policies. Rockefeller laws are a lot of the reason why so many of our young people are locked up, and we need to remember that and hold our electeds accountable for that as well. Aisha, what role does media play in perpetuating violence, music, news, TV, movies, etc.? What should we demand from the media?
You know how it is. So I didn't really hear the whole question.
I was saying that what role does media play in perpetuating violence, music, news, TV, and what should we demand from the media?
Well, one of the things that I found out over the years with the media is oftentimes they'll take what they think is the story, what somebody just on the street corner or what have you tell them is the story, that story goes out and it's the wrong information. And oftentimes, you know, I believe that you have to wait a little bit for the dust to settle, because even, and Omar knows this, when we hear about a shooting or a fight, the first thing that we hear is usually not it. It's understanding what happened over time. So the media has been guilty of that, and oftentimes guilty of promoting more of the wrong part, right? Because if you promote the violent act and you see it over and over and over again, it can make some who are not so well think that that's the thing to do. So I'll give you an example. The sucker punch, what they call the sucker punch, started up about, I would say 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. We started seeing it happen in Brooklyn and in the Bronx, and then it came to Harlem. And we saw the more it was shown on television, like the act over and over again of punching usually an elder person or a woman. Usually the person is a vulnerable person that's sucker punch. They're not gonna sucker punch Omar, right? They look for a woman or an elder person. And the more they showed that on TV, the more we began to see more sucker punching happen. So I think that we have to demand from the media that we don't have a strong focus just on the violence. But as much as the solution is appearing, let's focus on that. Let's tell the story, but also tell the story in a way that we're not making that act seem almost heroic or something that, you know, you can get away with, you know, because the person has not been found, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that we have to demand that the media tell the story, again, not focus so hard on the violent act, but maybe focus on the part of what it does to the victim. What happens to the victim who's beaten or stabbed or brutally beaten, or the elder woman that we stood against? And thank you, Omar, for sending Save to represent just the other day, Monday, our day off. A woman had been punched on Sunday. And, you know, people were asking me, is she black or white? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
She's 75 years old. You know, my mother's, she don't want me to tell her age, but, you know, my mother's in that bracket, right? And my thing was, as much as it was my day off, I needed to show that we're not going to have that Street Corner Resources, Harlem Save, and other organizations are not going to stand for it. And we stood up against it. So we didn't get as much media coverage, direct media coverage, but people went live and people started calling me. All we wanted was the message to get out. It wasn't so much about, I think sometimes we do better with social media than we do with television media, because they do 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and we can do the whole thing on our phone. So I always encourage the community to be the media, to be the voice, to blow the horn, to say, this is where we showing up. We're not having this on this block. Our voice, like we did back in Africa, people sounded the drum beat, the horn, and people came and showed up and took care of the village. That's what we need to do. So we need to be our media. I do a radio show every Monday morning for the last 20 some odd years. And it's in a place where every Monday we get a chance to talk about what's going on in the community, letting young people use that show as a platform, having community members come in, young people with cameras and iPhones and all of that. We have the media in our hand and we need to use it.
Right. So we're getting towards the end of our time, but I did want to make sure that, you know, every one of you answered this question. And Rudy, we can start with you. What is something that we can all do to create a world without violence?
Okay, this statement might be controversial, but
my
thing is the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers had created a model that was primarily for Black people. But if we could take that same model, which is it takes a village to raise a child, and provide the necessary tools for survival and tools, which would be education, food, shelter, clothing, okay? These things are essential. And if we was able to come together as a people, diverse people, to give everybody that opportunity and bring all these resources on a worldwide basis or platform, then I think this would create a world without violence.
Beautiful. Omar.
I don't think my answer is going to be as controversial because I'm not going to mention Black Panthers, but I agree with Rudy 100%. But honestly, I think it's not possible to have a world without violence. But what we can do is stuff like this. Have these conversations, make these connections, communicate. Communities got to come together. We got to stop competing with one another. And that's on all levels. That's like, you know, on the ground, within organizations, whatever it is, like we got to stop competing with each other. If we got the same goal of trying to like end violence and reduce violence, we have to work together. And I mean, Rudy said it as well, like just coming together. We have to come together. That's the only way we're gonna stop this. Like, you know, I could have the SAVE team in East Harlem. Aisha could have the Street Corner Resources team in West Harlem. AT Mitchell could be in Brooklyn with his team. And we do work together, but now I need the entire East Harlem community with me. Aisha need the entire Central Harlem with her. You know what I'm saying? That's how we can get to that point where it's no violence. And then that's when we talking about really changing them social norms and changing these norms, that's when we say, listen, it's nobody allowing any violence on any watch, on any block. This is how we gonna come together. And I think that's how we could get to that point of less violence.
Aisha? You're muted.
I want to make sure I'm clear on the question. The question is, how can we create our
A
community?
world without violence.
A world without violence. I think I agree with Omar that I don't think we'll have no violence, but that violence could be very minimal. And the way that we begin to create that is we have to change the mindset and continue to work to stay steady. This is not, a sprint. This is a marathon. And so it means that we have to stay steady with what we know works. And I agree with Omar that we need to work together. But when it's chaotic, we have to leave chaos and save our community. Because for me, it is not about, somebody wanting to just express their own agenda and do their own thing, because some of that can create violence, right? And I had to walk away from people because I'm not on that agenda. And I'm okay with doing that because the agenda is to save a life. And sometimes we can get off base and off center. So I'm not even sure that we can have, things perfect like that. I think that we need to form Voltron with those who form Voltron to end violence and save lives. And we have to be clear about that. This ain't no, everybody's in one group. It's just not that way. People come from different places with different ideas about this. And some of those things don't work for the entire community. They may work for the person who thinks that they're leading and it works for them. So I think we have to be real clear that it's not going to always be one big happy thing all the time. You're going to have differences. I think even in differences though, when people are centered and focused on the issue and saving lives, that's the trench that we work in. And if we work in that trench and don't get caught in small places, because our job is very big, and it is, I heard Brother Rudy say, people get tired. So we don't need extra stuff, extra baggage to carry. So I hear you, Omar. I used to be wanting everything to be, perfect. It's just not gonna be that way, baby. Yeah. And we have to say, is this, but I love to hear you because you sound like how I used to sound. It's just not gonna be that way. I would love for it to be. I would love for my family to gather and don't sit in the corner and have a big debate that turns into a big argument, right? But we know that we always have those members that do that. They show up to the dinner and, before the night is over. So, we just do the best we can with what we got. And if individually we stay on purpose, we can create where we are better, right? So if this is what I'm challenged with, this is where I'm going to put my energy. And if we all focus on that and come together from every other place on that, I think that we'll be good. Because we get caught sometimes in the wrong places, it takes us away from our work.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I want to say that I could go on forever. That was the last question. I also want to thank you all because I know how busy each and every one of you are. You could have been anywhere, but you were here having this really important conversation with me. So thank you for that. Rudy, I'm excited to have you as a new friend. Sister Aisha, I know we're already like new
That's
friends.
right.
And you know, so I just want to thank you for giving us this time. I know that I'm going to pass it over to our host. I know we have 5 minutes left, and I don't know if we're going to move into maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Wow, that was an amazing, amazing panel discussion. I don't know how we clap on, I don't know what we do, but we should be all doing it. You guys are amazing. Again, you know, you've been at this work. You're the real people. And Aisha, I think you closed it up with make it better where you are. That's all we can do, right? You know, there's a whole stand your ground thing, but this is our ground. If we stand our ground here,
That's right.
then we can control what happens here. We've lost so much control in our communities. So thank you all. I believe we have time for 2 or 3 questions. Brother Smalls, you can nod if we do.
Yes.
So we have 2 or 3 questions. And Sister Dr. Rainey, we're going to ask you to moderate those couple of questions. I think we're going to take them in the chat.
If you can add a question to the chat, and I will take them from there.
And if you had a question already, please add it again because the chat list is very long now.
So I'll go back. Yeah, if you could add it, it'd be great. Yes, someone is asking if we could share a document with resources, specifically those that were talked about today. And we could help put that together so you can get that from 100 Black Men. Aisha Omar mentioned that you respond to hospital calls, police calls. This is moving fast now. How do you intervene? You mentioned legal aid and who creates the protocol with the police. Aisha?
So in regards, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
In regards to the hospital responder program, the outreach team that's on the street, the Speak Peace Forward team, responds to the hospital. Oftentimes we'll have a clergy show up if it is a situation where the person has expired or is expected that there may be a life termination of life. The way that we do the reduction in violence at the hospital, the whole idea is to respond and find out what's going on, who are the family members, and to make sure that the violence does not spread, because it becomes infectious at the point of the family meet up and friends and everybody run into the hospital. And now people are on the phone talking about who's going to get the gun and who they're going after. And our job is to ear hustle, listen, and make sure that no one's calling for further violent action. And if they are, that we isolate that person in some way and begin to have a conversation that redirects that energy and that way of being. And we've been at the hospital when people are very angry. It's very traumatic when a young person, 16, 17 years old, is laying on a table with a bullet in his head or in his chest. And, you know, he's clinging to life, and you got the family outside wanting to get inside, and people become irrational. So our job is to comfort the family, the victim's family, and the victim, depending on the condition, and to make sure that there's no retaliation and no call for violence. So usually the hospital will let us know when a victim is in the hospital, so we get a call, and we get a lot of calls in the middle of the night while people are asleep. Yeah.
I know this is a new administration, but the question is, with President Biden's ghost gun proposal, investment in gun violence prevention, gun trafficking, do you think it will strengthen the Gun Control Act of 1968? And what about banning guns altogether like they do in China?
Mm-hmm.
I know
I just want to respond to this, and I don't know too much about the Gun Act in 1968. I was little, but I can look it up later. But what I will tell you is that I've been an advocate that advocated against the way that guns come into our urban communities, which we know they come up for New York, they come up the Iron Pipeline. They have gun shows And so I've advocated for closing the gun show loophole. It's a bill that's still waiting to become law, which makes it so that I could go, or anyone can go down south and purchase guns in what looks like a flea market and purchase multiple guns, often without ID. And I know because I've been with people who did it. We did it as a trial to see what would happen. And so I didn't actually purchase a gun, someone else was doing it. But I'll tell you, I also am proud that I had input on helping with the governor making the strongest gun laws in the country. But those gun laws are the strongest, but they don't really apply to what's happening in New York City. So, and a lot of what the gun laws do means that you have to have a licensed gun somewhere in order for those gun laws to apply to you. So the strongest gun laws don't cover the illegal gun. Other than that, the gun is still illegal, and you have that gun more accessible still. It's the same. And the gun laws govern the gun that you are licensed to carry and how it is. So I think, and one of the things I heard the president talk about today, he talked about micro-stamping. He didn't call it by that name, but it's micro-stamping. That bill has been waiting to become law for more than 10 years because I worked on it, right, with some folks. And what micro-stamping is where the bullet, in order to use the gun, even if you bought it illegally, you have to have bullets, right? And so that to purchase those bullets, we would have to have a serial number. That's what micro-stamping is. The bullet will be micro-stamped and it will be attached to the person who purchased it. So even if it's not the person who has the illegal gun, somebody takes responsibility for having purchased those bullets. You see what I mean? Yeah. That's a bill still waiting to become law. So when he said he's going to get that done, I'm waiting to see it, because I think Obama was president twice, and I forgot who was president before him, but that's how long that bill has been sitting there waiting to become law. And it's really hard to fight the NRA. They pay politicians. So that whole gun thing is work. So.
I know we're at time. I'm gonna ask two things. If Rudy, Aisha, and Omar will put your information in the chat in case people want to reach out to you with the best way to reach you. And I just wanted to just give this one statement because it actually just made my heart sing, right? Like Noel Ellison wrote, "Following the death of my nephew to gun violence, Iesha and Rudy were a great comfort. I need to thank and acknowledge their efforts." So I just wanted to share that as, you know, my last word.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you. That warms my heart. Don't make me cry.
Well, we go way back, though, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Thanks, Noel. You know I love you, my brother.
Love you too, Rudy. Thank you.
And we're still here. So when you
Understood.
need us, just
Yeah,
call.
this is the real work done by real people. It's not done for show, and oftentimes it's very hard, difficult, ugly, tired. Up at 2 o'clock in the morning, phone rings, the interrupters have to go. Yeah. So 100 Black Men salutes the work that all of you are doing. Thank you, Dr. Rainey. Thank you, Brother Coombs, Omar, and Aisha. Thank you all so much for what you've poured into us today. We have a survey, and it's going to continue to be put into the chat so that you can fill it out. And after we close, we are going to stay on and just have some open conversation, as we have people like Wayne Francis and Noel Ellison and others on the call who have a lot that they may still want to share even after the program is closed. Healed people, heal people. You know, there's a lot that we still have to say. And after the program's over, we'll leave this line open so folks can just say what they need to say. We're going to close with comments from President Ennis and our chair of our Health and Wellness Committee, Dr. Gary Butts, and then we'll move to the closing prayer.
Thank you very much for that. You know, this was such a phenomenal panel discussion. I know I was able to learn a great deal. And I know that our audience also appreciated it. But, there also needs to be follow-up. It's never a situation where it's just one conversation without follow-up. So I definitely look forward to the continued discussion on how we can make our communities safer, because our communities need it. The young Black men and Black women, we need each other. So I'm thankful for the panel for providing us with the information that was very much needed. I know I always like to end with telling folks to continue to love on each other, because you never know when it will be your last day. So make sure that you call that person that you haven't heard from in a while. Let them know how much you love them. You'll never want to be caught in a situation where you wish you had made that call. So I say that to everyone, and to also, we're still in this pandemic, so continue to wash your hands, continue to wear your mask. If you have not been vaccinated, please reach out to our office, and we will help facilitate that for you. If you need more education on it, please reach out and we'll try to get that information to you. We all need to remain safe during this pandemic so that we can see it through. So once again, thank everyone for joining us this evening. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be with us to get this valuable information. Thank you.
And before we go to Dr. Butts, as you take yourself off mute and get ready for your comments, Brother President, you mentioned follow-up, and I'm going to offer that we will host a program with the police. It's part of one of our grant deliverables with our national organization. So we'll be looking to circle back to you, Dr. Rainey and Iesha and Omar and others as we put that together. I don't know if Malone Brown is on, but he's working on that presently. And so the 100, we try to take the action. We don't just talk the talk. So Brother President says we need to follow up. We will follow up. Dr. Butts.
Thank you. And I first, someone asked if I was still online. You could not leave this. This was such a powerful, grounded presentation that hopefully makes it clear that indeed violence is a public health issue. And for anybody who can't appreciate that and the intersectionality with so many of the other struggles or issues that we struggle with in public health and healthcare, well, then you're under a rock. So I want to thank you for bringing your expertise and your passion and your spirit with us tonight. And hopefully we will stay in touch. And so we continue to build the community to advance us as a people across New York City and beyond. So thank you again.
And thank you, Dr. Butts. And thank you and your committee for pulling this together, and Anthony for your hard work. And Fred Keaton, I don't know if Fred is on the line, but Fred, thank you for introducing us to Dr. Rainey and helping to make this happen. Our opening prayer was given by our third Vice President, Terrence Byerson. I'm going to ask our first Vice President, Rob Brown, if he would do our closing prayer. We do this we pray all the time, so it's not unusual, but thank you, Brother First Vice President.
I let us all come together as one. And before I start the prayer, I would like to say thank you to the panel and great information. And as a son of the Bronx, who saw a lot of violence in our street, not only from the police, but amongst ourselves. You guys gave a lot of great information here that I think could be very helpful. Don't stop doing the work, because the work never stops need to be done. So let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for this information you allow these panelists to share with us today. Thank you for their dedication to the communities that we live in, that we once lived in, but we still care deeply about. Continue to bless them, protect them and their families, protect all those that are on this call, that if we see violence and we can do something, that we should do it. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. So the line is open. Anybody wants to just say hi or have anything to say? The program is ended, but the line is open. I'd really love to hear from Wayne Francis. I mentioned you before. You had some comments in the chat. I don't know if Sister Myers is still on the phone, but love to hear your voice. I see Sharon Long, James Peterson, some great minds on this call. So we'd love to hear from you.
Definitely would love to appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, Brother Bennett. Very good to see you tonight. And all the panelists did a great job. I appreciated the various perspectives. The comment that I dropped in the chat, I just wanted to respond to something that was posted earlier when someone alluded to something along the lines of banning all firearms like what China does. And while that might sound like an idealistic thing, in a country that has millions of firearms out there, it's very impractical. So it's important to stay within the realm of what's rational and possible. So that being said, I just wanted to highlight the importance of not, when we talk about gun control and gun violence, that we not paint this broad stroke that makes it seem as if, quote unquote, all guns are bad. There are people who choose to exercise their Second Amendment rights for self-defense, for home defense, that utilize firearms for sportsmanship, hobby. They have certain lifestyles that, whether it's hunting and things of that nature, that are all legal uses of firearms. And when we start talking about gun control and banning and taking away and things of that nature, as if it's the same thing or in the same breath of gun violence that are plaguing our streets and our communities and taking the lives of innocent people, I just want to remind folks it's not the same thing. We have to sort of like make that distinction. Now, while politicians have a tendency to paint things like this with broad strokes, the news makes it very easy. Every day you turn on the TV, there's another mass murder that, of course, is using a gun in order to conduct those crimes. But the vast majority of legal owners are not out there doing that kind of activity, yet they will be subject to the control, quote unquote, that's put on firearms writ large as a result of the actions of a few bad actors. It's similar like when we talk about what happens in law enforcement with cops. We know that all cops aren't bad. They're not all putting unicorn necks out there, so to speak. You have a few one-offs or bad apples that might conduct themselves in a way that compromises the integrity of the force overall. But most police officers and law enforcement officers are good people and are there to protect our community and to serve our community and do the right thing. So, I just want to just ask, be mindful of the broad strokes that lump everyone together when there are people that just want to do the good and honest thing of practicing their Second Amendment rights. That is a constitutional right, as we know, that we're all entitled to, mostly those outside of the 5 boroughs of New York City when you talk in New York State. But, nevertheless, it's something that we just need to be mindful of in the conversations about firearms and gun control. That was my piece that I wanted to just add to the conversation.
Yeah,
thank you for the opportunity.
Very well said, Brother Francis. That was needed to be said because, as you said, there's people out there that have guns, including myself, and it's legal to have. And we're not out there trying to kill or hurt nobody. We're out there just to do it for competition or just for a hobby. So absolutely, I'm glad you made that clear to everybody on here.
We have Dr. Karen Myrie. I'm gonna put her on the spot because she's representing a couple of organizations, including the Coalition of 100 Black Women. If she could take herself off mute, tell us what's going on with our sisters in the 100.
Yo, you lucky you are you. Thank you.
Good.
The talk was definitely excellent. I would definitely co-sign the persons who said that we need to continue to do this work. I am actually the medical director for New York City's juvenile detention services provided via ACS. So I've actually just gotten home from work from the secure detention facility. So I have on average anywhere between 115 and 125 youth in detention, in secure detention in 2 facilities, one in Brooklyn and one in the Bronx, as well as non-secure detention group homes in 4 of the city's 5 boroughs. So I see what happens when the work is not done. Let's put it like that, right? And I previously did this work, and when I did it 15 to 17 years ago, most of the youth that were in there were there because of, they had broken into a car, they had robbed somebody of their cell phone, something to that effect. Now I have, out of my 120, I have at least 70 or so that are in there for attempted murder, actual murder, murders, put an S on the back of it. And these are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, sometimes as young as 8 and all the way up to 21. So this work definitely continues and is work that definitely needs to be done. Rudy, I'm happy to see you, as when I was chair of the health committee of the of the New York City 100 Black women. Yeah, that was like 10,000 lifetimes ago. We did combo work with 100 Black men. So yes, all of the entities that are represented here are necessary. We have to come at it pretty much from every single angle in order to reach our young people. We really do. And so, Jocelyn, I definitely appreciate you and your organization as well.
All right, anybody else jumping in? We have to talk to each other. Lloyd Williams, one of our members, president of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, in his mellowing days, always says we all need to be talking. That's where things start. We have to talk to one another. Anybody else jumping in?
Yeah, I just want to say something. I'm sure you guys heard today about the killing in Rock Hill, North Carolina. And the only reason we probably heard about this, it was because it was done from an ex-NFL player. And generally speaking, these things never ever hit us. But it was very interesting that my boyfriend's mother is very close to that whole entire family. And when we called down there to check on her, she went to go and call the mother and found out that she was dead. And so she's devastated. So a lot of times, a lot of these things don't hit us. And that's the reason why we don't think about them, but they're closer to us than we think. We're sometimes only one step away from the violence. That's all I'm gonna say.
Amen.
Hey, this is Rob Brown again. As I said, Omar still on the call?
No, he said he had to jump.
Okay. So the other lady who runs the other program, is she on the call?
Aisha, are you still there?
No.
Nope, I don't see her. But we have contact information for both of them.
I just want to ask those two, because they're running current programs in Harlem. What is the contact, or how are the 18 to 24-year-olds or the 18 to 27-year-olds? What is their engagement in their programs? They're not here. Does anybody know who might be on the call?
I can give some insight on that. I was looking to see if Nicole Myers was still on, but I don't know if anyone from the GOSO staff is remaining. But the Cure Violence program, a large part of that population is in that age group, Rob. At least it started out in that age group. And so it's not, even when we talk about kids, it's not just younger kids, it's these folks who Brothers and sisters who are in these crews are usually in their early 20s and teens and late teens, and they're the leaders of the crews, or they were former gang members who helped set up the crews. So a lot of their work, as much as we talk about the interrupting, it's also case management. So in their model, they have cases, they have a caseload, they work with their young people, they try to provide additional resources, try to connect them to what they need, but they also work with the police. So police engagement with law enforcement is a part of their model. And it sounds from Omar like that's working. But regarding 18 to 24-year-olds, that I would imagine is still a strong part of their population.
Okay, excuse me.
I would just like to ask. We had some information given to us from what was the guy's name? He was talking about. He's a gun. Wayne Francis. I know Wayne Francis, the gun owner, and Rudy Coombs is also one of our members. Also members of gun clubs. But
yes, sir. I'm here.
My question to you guys, and just to get some, a lot of times the guns on our streets were once legal firearms. They get stolen one way or the other. I truly believe that if you're going to be a legal gun owner, you have a responsibility to protect your weapon. And I mean, if you have to put a safe in your house, you put a safe in your house, or you keep it locked up whatever, if you had a gun club or some facility, I don't know what you guys do. What responsibility do you think it is on the gun owner if he doesn't have his gun properly secured, and at least so it being stolen and used in some sort of crime? Do you think that legal gun owner has some responsibility there?
Wayne, I'm gonna let you take that because I know you'll answer that very correctly.
I can only speak from my perspective. I'm not attempting to respond for all firearm owners across the world, just to be clear, just speaking as an individual. And I hear where you're going with that as far as liability and accountability is concerned for, in the event that something like that happens. But before I respond to it, I want to preface that in the event that a situation like a break-in happens, right? You have to consider the fact that that homeowner is a victim too in the situation. Somebody chose to infringe upon their personal and private property, come into their home, and may somehow gain access to a firearm that, as you said, should be stored in a safe or some location securely, so that way it would not be subject to theft. But who could say what level of burglary skills people have out there this day and age, that no matter even the best of your intentions to secure your firearms, it doesn't make it theft proof, so to speak. So that being said, the firearms that are obtained, legally, when you have to walk into an FFL, a federal firearm license dealer, you have to go through an FBI check. You have to, answer certain questions correctly. You can't be a felon. So just to get to the point where you could be able to own a firearm legally, as I stated in the chat, is a rigorous process. So you paid your dues, so to speak, in order to be able to acquire that firearm. Now, once you get it, you should do things like join a firearm club, so that way you know how to use it responsibly, you know how to maintain it, you know how to be able to store it, secure it, and everything that comes with that. But you could do everything that's right, and at the end of the day, still be subjected to a break-in like any other New Yorker, depending on the neighborhood that you live in. And to say that someone who is already a victim should now pay a further penalty, so to speak, that would victimize them further, I can't say I necessarily prescribe to that notion, because it's not something that they did intentionally or in concert with the burglar. It's something that they got victimized, and God forbid if they caught that person in their home and had to use that firearm, certainly there'd be consequences associated with that, even if they were in their rights to shoot. Because there's things such as the castle doctrine that would come into play that most people don't realize, that just because you have a break-in doesn't mean that that automatically gives you a right to exercise deadly force against a person. There's certain parameters around. They have to be approaching you, or they can't be retreating and things of that nature before you can actually exercise force. You have to call the police. You have a responsibility to retreat, in fact, before attempting to shoot someone. So there's all the education that I think that responsible firearm owners should empower themselves and equip themselves with, so that way they are less subject to being a victim and cause someone else to be victimized as a result of their firearm being stolen. I hope that could somewhat address your answer, even though you're probably looking for me to do a 5 to 10 behind my gun.
No. I just think it's important. I think it's important that you explain that, because there's always that, hey man, this what gun was used in a crime, it was stolen. You hear that all the time.
Right. True.
But it never gets back to, what did that gun owner do to really protect his weapon? Now, when you go back and you start looking at, kids, when we were young, I'm sure I'm a little older than you, but we got fascinated with firearms from watching the Lone Ranger and Roy Rogers, and we had cat pistols, and that was our introduction to firearms. And
right.
Later on, I grew up a little bit in South Carolina, and I had a .22 rifle, and I shoot squirrels, rabbits with it. You know what I'm saying? You got kids in the city now, their infatuation is rap videos, or the older guys in the neighborhood who actually have a gun. With your gun club, are you doing anything with teenagers to educate them about, the rightful use and the Second Amendment?
Yes, sir. Definitely. Education is a big part of what we're about. We're about firearm safety, and firearm education is the main thrust of what we do. Also, women and families, by the way. A lot of people, there's this misnomer out there that, it's the old white man that's an NRA member that's who are firearm enthusiasts these days. But there's been about a 53% increase in firearm ownership amongst African Americans in this country since the George Floyd summer, let's call it, right? And that's directly correlated to how unsafe many people of color feel in this country, where they had to run out in droves and acquire something. And so as a result of that, again, it's no good to just acquire it and not know how to use it responsibly. I have the saying, the first time you fire a 12 gauge isn't when you actually need to have to fire a 12 gauge, because just the recoil on that could freak you out and cause it to jump out your hand. And God forbid your own firearm ends up getting used against you. So we teach people about how to use their firearms responsibly, safely. We train on various ranges of firearms. We do tactical support training, so where people could actually be in simulated environments built and constructed like a home, so they could know how to be able to move about the home and clear it, where someone might be hiding behind a door in a corner, things of that nature. So the best defense, so to speak, is training, is preparation. And we prepare our community to be able to deal with emergency situations that might arise. 3 o'clock in the morning, your alarm goes off. You don't want to just be there shaking in your boots and tap your wife and tell her, you go check. You want to be able to, to step up and to be able to do what you have to do to defend your home and family in the event of an emergency, and so we're big on that. Yes, we train heavily and provide education and resources to our membership, so that way they could become versed on the proper measures, because becoming a firearm owner is a huge responsibility, and it's a very expensive hobby, if you want to call it a hobby. You can pay $1,000 on average for a firearm. And if you're going to invest that kind of money into it, you better invest in the training as well, in order to learn how to use it responsibly and how to secure it in your home, so that way no one else that's not supposed to get access to it can't. And so it doesn't lead to those thefts you spoke about earlier.
Thank you.
You're welcome, brother.
We got a Yanel Harris on the phone. Brother Harris, what's on your mind? Me? Yeah, you.
First and foremost, I want to thank Brother Rudy for inviting me to this, man. This was very informative and the information was excellent. One of the things I want to do is commend all the people who are doing things nonprofit, man. You know, I salute to you for real, man, for y'all to do these things for so many years, man. You know, for some of people that's doing it, you know, you don't really get the accolades and the awards, you know, the stuff for that, but you continue to do it regardless. I commend y'all for that, man, for real, man. Because for y'all, don't for once think that the hard work y'all put in is not working, man. It's because of y'all as people like me out here trying to get into this information, man. So that's the first one to do is commend y'all for y'all hard work into this, man. The second thing I want to add to it is, man, I never knew movements like this even existed. You know what I mean? The stuff like this, man, I see this on TV, man. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man. So when I hear the stuff y'all talking about, man, I'm just excited, man, to even be a part of something like this, man. I just want to know where can I sign up to help or whatever things, man. Just let me know, man. I'm just here listening and I'm excited, man. I just want to thank y'all for this opportunity, man. That's the only thing that's on my mind, man. I'm just happy to be here, man.
Well, I can speak for Yanel. Yanel is a good brother. He's doing a lot of stuff. He works in the church. He's got his own little DJ thing where he talks about the ministry. You can see him in the background doing his thing. And he's a very good brother, young brother, and he's very motivated to do something in the community. And he's doing that. So, you know, props to you, young brother, because you are the future.
Thank you, man. I'm trying, man.
Great. Anyone else before we close? And please remember to complete your survey if you haven't already.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Silas Burgess III. I wanted to thank the 100 Black Men and Rudy Coombs, Brother Rudy Coombs, for inviting me on. I received a lot of information that I think will be impactful for the networks that I'm in. I am working as a federal employee, and I also work with a lot of federal employees dealing with their adverse action issues and also helping people that are interested in upward mobility in federal service. So I think that a lot of the information that was shared can be used as pathways to try to help some people into the federal workforce so that way they have other opportunities. So I just want to thank everyone.
Great. Is there anybody else?
Maxine from 100 Black Women and also president of Snowboarding Ski and Sports. I want to thank you all for having this panel discussion and keep the conversation going. Most important is also we need to move forward and train somebody else that's taking to your shoes, like a Rudy Coombs and Omar and also the other lady, because like you said, you've been doing it for 30 years. You need to have somebody step in behind you and make sure they'll be able to carry the torch if you should decide to ever step down.
Yeah. And that's a great point. But in some of these areas, we're hoping that we will just be out of business and no one has to really take it on. But for now, Sister Maxie, you are 100% correct. And we're here to do that work and train our replacements. So please, check us out online at ohbm.org and we'll send out some information about our Junior 100 program where we're training tomorrow's leaders. I see Mike Roberson. You always have some great insights. You still with us? Here's my brother.
I am, Brother Bennett. I was, I'm sorry, I was on mute. I want to say the panel was absolutely exceptional tonight. Enjoyed hearing from some people I've never met before. As always, Brother Coombs always bring to light what he's been doing for decades now. So I just want to say thank you to the team, continued success in what we've already done, and the future is in front of us. Yandel, I see you, brother. I hear you. Let's keep it up.
Thank you. Anybody else before we close? Going once, going twice. Sold to the woman in the feathered hat. Thank you, everyone. This has been a really great evening. Thanks for those who stuck around for the after party. And we're going to close this down now so you can get back to your evening. So thank you. And we are signing off, Dina.
Everybody stay safe and protected. Thanks for participating.
Thank you, Brother Con.